When you start questioning everything and it kind of gets a bit overwhelming, I need you to realize like it's not a state of permanence. It's just that right now, the reason that that kind of comes up and you have a lot of like overthinking, overthought, or you're trying to fix it is just because you have an old system that's been trying to collapse. And in fact, today we're going to be moving into how you've already completed a cycle that you were in for quite some time and what to do from there. So in today's reading, the universe is sitting here trying to get you to understand that like you have completed a cycle, and we have a tendency to like hold on to what's familiar. And we have a tendency to like hold on to stories, whether we consider it to be positive or negative. We will create like the definement of self by the past, by what has happened or what has not happened. And you're being asked, like, is there a way? Again, we're having the completion energy, but the universe is asking, can you witness? Can you see without the definement of everything that's present? And really, it has a lot to do with not being a doer, but a sitting in what's present, allowing yourself to feel probably a bit foolish as this is going on. Is that there isn't this like steadfast plan. There isn't this clarity. There isn't this necessarily knowing of what comes next. And that in itself is like uncomfortable as shit. So it's like, how do you take these and make them peaceful? How do you make them a part of your journey without defining them as who you are? And the thing to keep in mind is throughout this process, your mind is going to try to get the best of you. Your mind will try to overrule you, can impede on your confidence, your ability to feel that, that you can get a positive from a positive, and that it doesn't have to come from struggle in order to move forward. And so this is a matter of during this time, while you're overrunning and coming from your mind, you have to stay grounded and you have to reconfigure yourself to be able to be present so that you are more of the observer of your life. I like to use the analogy of like being an owl sitting on a tree. And instead of with judgment, with analytical, finesseness, trying to find what's wrong, you're just literally like seeing a situation for what it is. Because life is literally only what you make it. And there's parts of life that's subjective. 2 + 2 is 4. When the air is set on 60, the temperature, coming out of it should be, objectively 60 degrees. However, the feeling of someone walking into that room could change and to someone, it could be hot or cold. And then that's subjective. So this is a matter of you in your life gets to choose the subjective elements and to realize that a lot of the things going on in your head, most of the stuff going on in your body is very subjective. It's not a state of permanence. It's not actually who you are. It's just who you've defined yourself by. And again, that can get really overwhelming. And then what's making you question everything? And if you should be doing more, why are you laying down so much? Why do you feel tired? That's just your mind. It's just your mind. It's not letting you be a witness to your life. It's not letting you just be where you are to, again, feel super grounded where you are right now, not where you're going. So again, the completion card came first. It's not coming after saying to go do all these things and then you've completed. This has happened. The version of who you used to be is done. It's just more of you realizing to take the self-ownership of removing the subjective elements of the stories that you've told yourself that you can't be, you can't have, and you can't do. And I mean, it can literally just be behavioral aspects of your human conditioning that you're just like, oh, well, I mean, this is just how my family is. Like everybody in my family is overweight, so I'm overweight. That is just a story you've told yourself. It's just something that maybe sometimes that's how you feel connected to your family. Because if you take that away, maybe you have nothing. Somebody that hides themselves away in their room, even though they may have had like a traumatic past with their, parent or parents, sometimes they're still creating that act as an adult because it can get you attention. When I was a child, I used to intentionally I mean, I realize this as an adult, but as a child, I used to like look angry all the time and look upset or like something was wrong with me. And now looking back, I sought like compassion and nurturing so badly that what better way to get somebody's attention other than to look miserable, right? Because if you're joyous and stuff, that means like everything's going fine, that you're feeling so fulfilled. Well, I didn't. So I wore my emotions like on my sleeve. And it actually did not help me in any way. It pushed people away from me. It made people like, oh, what are you like that for? So it was the exact opposite from what I wanted. And then I also, in my life, became habitual into believing my mind a lot of saying that like life couldn't feel soft and couldn't be comforting. And people closest to me hurts me. Again, the story. But then I also like conjured up these stories of the meaning behind these feelings. Like emotions are, again, very subjective elements. They're not defined objectives. They're not permanent. They are subjective feelings, which is why you can get your feelings hurt sometimes by another person when they just think you're being overly dramatic or blowing things out of proportion or not feeling enough, right? That's your subjective opinion of what's going on. And where a lot of you guys are, like where you are right now, is you have to see that how you've lived life all this time versus how you're going to be living life from like, this moment on is going to have a whole lot of like, whoop, it's going to be flipped, like very flipped. So if you had a lot of like steady predictability and like forward linear momentum, I call it like the pen life, like everything was more like this instead of a zigzag, you're going to realize it's not. And you more than likely did plan predictability and prior proper planning to prevent piss poor performance, as my husband likes to say. You probably did a lot of that there. And you probably knew what was coming next a lot because you prepared for it. Therefore, you knew the outcome that was coming. Again, that's just falsified belief of sense of control. So then if you have been that person and now you're starting to realize like, yeah, it doesn't mean your life is in shambles and that you don't have, let's call it stability. Stability can totally still be present just because you don't have predictable structure or predictable outcomes more so. Like you can still have structure and still have, again, a sense of stability and safeness, like in your life financially, through a career or whatever. But you've outgrown like how you used to do things. So like that's my husband's growth pattern currently, and allowing himself to not get stuck in his head of like emotionally react. So he's not an external emotional reactor in emotional situations. It's like financial or planning and like plan B, plan C, all these things. And he feels kind of foolish at times because it's like he's like cliff diving without a parachute and then trusting that he's just going to fall in like a meadow of cotton or something, or like wings are going to grow out. And it's like, what? This isn't logical. Like this doesn't happen. And then the mind's like, oh, this kind of stuff. And then in my life, what came from a zigzag, unpredictability, didn't feel stable, didn't feel safe, kind of felt like, again, my omen was the black cloud. His has always been like the gold cloud. And mine's been switching to where I still have the elements of myself. The difference is I have a lot more order and habits. So he naturally chooses to have he likes routine and habits because that's kind of his behavior. He doesn't like moving a room around. Like it's good enough as it is. Well, I'm the type of person, I'll go rearrange furniture and I'm like, look at this new space. This is awesome. Or take a painting from one room and move it to another. Well, to him, it's like, oh, what are you doing changing things up? And I'm like, why not? Like, especially like in those situations, you didn't even spend $1 and then it feels like you got a new space. Well, as far as me as a person, I haven't always had habits and routines unless like I had a time for a job. Well, now in my life, I'm trying to bring in a little bit more of this because I realize my life doesn't have to be a chaotic zigzag all the time, and that I don't lose the essence of spontaneity. I don't lose the essence of kind of being random with thought and also impeding upon my creative process. I think there was an innate fear that you either had to be this way or, like, let's just say like this, right? Like you either had to be one or the other. And then realizing that even this can get leveled out, right? You just might have little diversions along the way. And yeah, there might be some aspects of life that you have to be a little bit more still with and a lot more present with in order to have it come forward to ground yourself. So in essence, like everything that's going on, and as despite how maybe confusing it could be, I do have a free quiz below that allows you to create not create, but find like the archetype that's been kind of creating itself and what's been like really heavily present in your life. It's not to define yourself by it again. It's not a state of permanence. It's a subjective way of looking at your life to objectively make some decisions. And that in itself can help take you from being so linear and rigid and maybe doing a little diversion. And then if you've been a bit more like this, to create a little bit more like this in your life without feeling like you've lost the identity of what you are or believe to be.